Well, good morning. Welcome back to Impact. Russell Thomas in the studio this morning with my son, Dylan Thomas-Bouchier. Good morning, Dylan.
Good morning. Yes, your eldest.
This was a suggestion of Rick Kirshner. He said, you should bring Dylan in to interview on the show. And I do need to say that this has not been rehearsed. I have not asked Dylan any of these questions, maybe over dinner at some point. I don't know. And the reason we've asked Dylan to come in is that he recently got some pretty exciting news. Why don't you share what that exciting news is, Dylan, to add context to why you're here?
Sure. My biggest news is that I am a new student at the National Theatre School of Canada, which is the biggest, or one of the biggest, conservatory theatre schools in Canada. And they accept usually 12 to 14 people into their programs each year. So I am in their acting program.
And it was a little bit of a journey to get in there.
Yeah, so like most conservatory programs, there is an audition process, usually a nationwide audition process for NTS. And then after that, if you get past that, of about 400, 500 audition, and then only 40 people get called back for the callback. So I was one of those 40, and then I got asked to join the program.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yes. You think back at this, how many people have to go through and what you have to do to get in. It's very rewarding just to get that nod. So
I guess it's somewhat of a reflection of the experience you've had in Fort McMurray. I guess not just Fort McMurray, because you also had Arts Trek experience, but you had a lot of people that inspired, influenced, and helped groom you as an artist.
Yeah, and everyone that will be going through that program can share that to some degree. We all have people that groom us. We all have people that inspire, and people that push us to do what we love to do. So to now have all of those people from my past, from all these years, to influence this decision to go to Montreal and to be part of this program it's quite special, because there's hundreds of people that have been part of this journey for me, whether it's a big or in a small way. So
the National Theatre School is a little bit different than a university program, as an example. Can you illustrate that slightly when you say conservatory program, what that might mean?
Sure. So when I say conservatory, it means more of a one-on-one, smaller group focus. So a university, you might have certain classes that you have to take, like theater history or Canadian theater, or these more focused courses with a larger group of people, anything from 15 to 30 to plus students in your course. Where a conservatory is more, you stay with your 12 to 14 people. You stay with them for your morning classes, and you work with your professors and your instructors, and they kind of groom you because they get to spend a lot more time with you. Where there's 12 or 14 students, there are over 100 different instructors that come through the program each year and instruct their students. And then the further along you get in the program, you're then interacting with students from your same year that are in different programs. So maybe the production program, or the technical design, or the directing, and you're working on projects together. And eventually it all culminates in the third year when you're doing production after production after production, and there's almost no classwork.
There are a couple people in Fort McMurray that may not have necessarily been raised here, but went to the National Theatre School. Who are they?
Well, I know of Justin Shaw, who recently graduated from the 2016 acting program, and he was the one who really gave me the idea to audition, and then once I did, gave me advice and guidance to really get further along in the process. There are other people. Steph Link went through one of their programs many years ago.
Okay.
As well as Eugene Carnegie, who works at Keanu Theatre. So a handful of people, and those three are just the three that have more or less directly influenced me in some way, right? There's a couple more that I'm not super familiar with, but there are more that have gone through that program.
My guest this morning is Dylan Thomas-Bouchier, my older son, who is off to the National Theatre School in Montreal this coming fall. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I'll ask him questions that might be a little bit more interesting. It'll be fun. You're listening to Impact right here on 91.1 The Bridge. We're back with Impact. Our guest this morning, Dylan Thomas-Bouchier, my son, who is off to the National Theatre School in Montreal this coming fall. It's a pretty big deal on many different levels. Hundreds of kids, and not just kids, young adults, university students audition for this program, and only 12 to 14 were invited to come this coming fall, and Dylan is one of those. Dylan's history is interesting. I like to say he was born of the theater and sort of somewhat in the theater. I've told the story, Dylan, but what's your knowledge of how you came into the world and your connection to the theater?
My knowledge of it is...
And I'll correct you if you get
Sure.
anything wrong.
Yeah, I honestly, I won't say the stage show because I forget which show it is. But you were on stage during a production at Keanu Theater, and it was either was it near the end of the first act or something like that. My mother, who was in the audience, went into labor at the time, and had to be rushed out of the theater and rushed to the hospital. And you, I believe, continued on with the show.
I think it's funny how over time the story morphs, right?
Yes.
And my memory is slightly different. The show was Taming of the Shrew, and I was playing the lead opposite a lovely lady named Catherine Ewell. Dave Kirshner Jr. was in that show, among many other people, and it was being directed by... Oh, my God. Now I'm testing myself. I'll think of it. And your mom did go into labor. It was sort of after the show, so
okay.
I actually took her to the hospital, and you were born. So that would have been Saturday night of the first week of the run, and you were born on Monday, so 2 days later. And so for the listener, Dylan was not due to arrive until April. This was mid-February, so you were really early.
Yes.
And very small.
Yes.
So you were 4 pounds. So I like to say you were born of the theater. So my question is, I know we would take you to the theater as a young person and I remember you went to Paper Bags, Princesses, Puddles, and Pigs when you were just so little. But what's your first memory of actually participating in and being part of the machine of theater?
I remember, I'm sure there was stuff before this, but we had a big family trip. Everyone from your side of the family came to Fort McMurray, and we saw Beauty and the Beast.
Ah, okay.
And that's kind of the first one that I remember. I think I was on stage during rehearsal at one time or something, because I saw the jail cell that you were put in or something, and I realized it wasn't actual bars or something like that. That was my first initial memory of realizing, oh, this is everything is built or whatever. And then there's like a gap where I don't remember much in between there.
Your first volunteer opportunity was what? Was it hometown?
Yes, with theater, it would have been hometown. I was a follow spot, so I would follow the actors with my big light, with the spotlight, and I would follow them, and that was a tough show to do because there's so many numbers. There's so many dance numbers and music numbers, and but get thrown right in because you get, especially when you're in that position, you get 2 weeks, under 2 weeks to really get the show under you. So, one time I had 4 days to prep for a show before the run started. So
awfully hot up there too with the follow spot.
Yeah.
You have publicly said in a number of different venues and in a number of different ways that theater perhaps saved your life.
Yes, I have said that.
Talk about that.
Well, sure. But just to give some context, before I found theater, or before I really got into theater, or you pushed me into it, as I say sometimes, which I think is a little bit incorrect, but I did get that sense when I was younger. I didn't have much to really grasp onto, at least socially. I didn't have a large friend group that I could really entrust in. So I was a little bit of an outcast with my little social experience and my physical boundary. And then also add on to that, I had many months of my young life in a hospital. So I had leg surgeries, and that kept me in a care unit in Glenrose Hospital for 3 months when I was 8, 9, and then 3 months again when I was 10, 11. You know, so that's all of that time. I wasn't even a teenager yet, right? So I didn't have much of a grasp on what the world was or who I had with me, or even to family members who would visit, I was very closed off because I didn't know how to approach that. So after all of that, then I kind of got into theater, and it bit the bug in a way, right? So it wasn't until I started acting in my second show. I mean, I did enjoy Hometown, which was my first, but a full year later, I then got into Les Miserables, directed by Claude Giroux. So he gave me a part, and that's really where I bit the bug, and that's kind of when I say that there was a new beginning for me. You know, my important life really started.
A couple things. I remember the name of the director of Taming of the Shrew, for the record, James MacDonald. As soon as you said Claude's name, James directed me a number of different times. The second thing is, for the listener, many people know Dylan. He's a very recognized person in the community, but he was born with cerebral palsy. It took a long time to figure that out. It was years, I think, a couple of years. And Dylan didn't walk until he was 3.5 years of age. And for Steph's benefit, so Dylan crawled everywhere up until that age, and he started walking one day. We were at a wedding, and I was holding a baby. I think it was Paul Gelano's baby, I think.
Yes, I believe so.
Dylan got jealous, got up, started walking. So that was at 3.5 years of age. So let's talk about. Listeners might have watched the TV series Breaking Bad, and one of the actors in that show is a kid or an adult now that has cerebral palsy. Talk about what is cerebral palsy to you, and what do you feel it limits you in some ways? Sure.
In some ways it does, but maybe not so much in the literal physical sense. At times, I find that I let it mentally limit me. You know, if I'm not careful, I will start to get myself into a bit of a mental funk. Yeah. Just because you think, or I think, that these things are big limitations, but I have to remind myself that I am very fortunate the way I am. Some people would look at me and they say, "Oh, I wouldn't want to take on that extra hurdle," but there are other people, not only in the entertainment industry, but around the world, who have cerebral palsy that are much more severe than mine. I have a very mild case. I can still walk. I still have strong control of my extremities and everything. So, and in that way, I'm fortunate. So I have to remind myself of that, because if I don't, I will think, and this is what I thought when I was younger, when I was that social, when I was in a social cocoon, I thought that I wasn't on par with other kids, and they were taking me on as pity, those kind of things, those kind of mindsets. But switches with life experience, and when you kind of have the bigger picture, and I was able to take what I know and become a better human being for that. So I don't look at it too much as a limitation anymore. but I certainly did at one time.
Well, certainly being accepted to really, I call it the Yale Law School of the theater world in Canada, the National Theatre School is a testament to that and the work that you've done. Dylan Thomas-Bouchier is our guest this morning. He is a local actor who is off to the National Theatre School. He's also a stand-up comedian and a playwright as well. We're going to talk about those things when we come back on Impact. It is a team effort of United Way, which just a few weeks ago changed their name officially to the United Way of Fort McMurray and Wood Buffalo. Also, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, YMM Magazine, and 91.1 The Bridge. Welcome back to Impact. Our guest this morning is my eldest son, Dylan Thomas-Bouchier, who is off to the National Theatre School this coming fall. And we thought we'd bring him in. It was Rick's suggestion. I think it was a good one to talk about his journey through theatre and life and where he's off to in the next couple of months. And when we went to break, I sort of teased people that one of the things you've taken on, largely not unbeknownst to me, I knew you were doing it, but we didn't really get to see your stand-up stuff until quite recently. I don't even know. How did you end up doing stand-up comedy?
Well, it kind of came about out of nowhere for me as well. I went to one of the open mic stand-up nights at Bailey's Pub. I think at that time Justin Shaw was performing or hosting or something, and I just wanted to go and have a good night. So I went and I enjoyed myself, and then the following 2 weeks later when it happened again, I decided to go up and do it. So I did it, but I didn't do it after that. There was a couple of months where that was a one-time thing, didn't really prepare much. But then a couple months later, I went back and I just had a stronger intention to try it again and just see what could happen. And I didn't burn, so that was a reminder that, I enjoyed this the first time, and it was a more solid set in the second time. And I told the joke that I cannot repeat on air, that got Justin's attention, really. And he said, that really got the audience, so I want to bring you in to do this show called Spare Change, which was a fundraiser comedy show in support of Some of the Solutions. And then Shaw TV came and they recorded it, and now it's on their YouTube page, and so it gets constant playback on their show as well sometimes. So I thought for Matt's benefit that we would do a little bit of a video playback. Dylan's opening routine from the Spare Change event in support of Some Other Solutions.
Oh my goodness, people are here. $25 well spent. Goodbye, everybody. No, give him a show. My name is Dylan Thomas-Bouchier, and yes, that does mean my father is Russell Thomas the painter. And now I will answer the most important question. Yes, I have seen him naked. He has a good personality. He's also here tonight, so Are you glad you gave that painting? I'm sure you are.
It was a good experience, and I can say, I believe, that on July 15th, I'll be back doing another show.
Oh, good.
It's called Jokes in July. It's hosted by Renee Manners. It's headlined by Renee Manners, and it's hosted by Justin Shaw at Tavern on Main. So,
from an acting perspective, and not just acting, because you've done a number of keynote speeches and have done exceptionally well, but talk about how stand-up comedy maybe is one of those things to put in your toolkit and why it's so valuable.
Stand-up, like doing public speaking, like doing acting, it's a branch of the same thing. It's performance. it's like you said, it's something to put in the hat, or something to pull out of the toolbox when needed, right? So this new experience of stand-up that I'm doing, I believe that it'll be another thing to pull out, maybe when I'm in Montreal, see kind of how that works. But also those three things of stand-up, more typical performance, and then keynote speaking, they all kind of work together to become a more well-rounded person and performer. So
the other two things, you have directed, and you directed a one act in your final year at Westwood.
Yes, I did.
Which was really good. But and because we're running out of time, I want to get to this. You just came back from Next Fest in Edmonton. Talk about what you were doing there.
Sure. Next Fest, for those that don't know, is a Edmonton arts festival with hundreds of, or over 100 different artists of all different facets in Edmonton. But I was one of two people to be sponsored and brought up from Fort McMurray to Edmonton to be part of the festival. So for that festival, I did a public play reading of my play, which is currently in development, called Room 801. So we did a reading. Luckily, I got my actors together, and we recorded the audio, and now it's on the Next Fest site. But that was a 2-week experience of just taking in art, taking in people's work, and in the process working on my stuff. And I think it went over very well. And again, that's something else to add, a director, playwright, stand-up comedian, actor, presenter, all those things.
You can actually listen to that public reading. It's on the YMM Theater Facebook page.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and if you want to find it, nextfest.org, I believe, and it'll be under the theater section, under the playwright section, and all of the play readings, because there was a handful of them. They're all on that site.
You've already mentioned that hundreds of people have influenced your journey so far. You go to an event like Next Fest where you're surrounded by artists from all over the province. You're about to go to the National Theatre School and be around artists from across the country. When you look ahead beyond the 3 years of the program, any sense of where this is all taking you? I'm asking this as a father.
As a father, yeah. He wants a little bit of clarity. Honestly, I don't know. But in a sense, that's a little bit beautiful. Because in life, we don't know what we're doing. We can try and make things as clear as we can, but you'll be thrown curveballs in life. Things won't be as easy as you want it to be. So after these 3 years, I'll have training under my belt. But none of that matters if I cannot connect with people personally. So that is the most important lesson that someone can learn, and the most important teaching someone can do. So after these 3 years, my intention is to work in the theater industry, work in movies or TV show, whatever facet I am able to go down, and just do it to the best of my ability and connect with people and tell stories.
Perfectly said. Dylan, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Dylan is off to the National Theatre School in the fall. He's got a stand-up gig coming up in support of Some Other Solutions,
yes,
you said,
it is, yeah.
Which is coming up July 15th.
Yes.
Very cool. He is a Fort McMurray born and raised kid, born sort of in the theater at Keano Theater. His mom went into labor while watching one of my shows years ago, and has done very, very well for himself. You've been listening to Impact this morning, a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, YMM Magazine, and 91.1 The Bridge.